you for joining us today on Cape Chronicle. I'm Audra Kane. In this episode, we will be talking with Mark Winkler, the Regional Emergency Management Coordinator, and Lieutenants Virginia and Matthew DeGonia, the new directors of the Cape Girardeau Salvation Army, as well as Corporal Ryan Droege, a crime analyst with the City of Cape Girardeau. That's all ahead on Cape Chronicle.
You don't want to hear just a lecture. You need to get in there and do the work. At Southeast Missouri State University, you'll perform on stage to sold-out crowds. Lead a technology edvolution in your own classroom. Whatever you do here, you will never do it alone. Because at Southeast, we'll never tell you what you can't do. We are here to show you all that you can do.
Through the years, trends and styles may come and go, but the important things remain the same. Generation after generation, consistently there, creating moments and memories to last a lifetime. Like a true friend, the national parks have always been there for you, and now you can be there for them. Support the National Park Foundation and help protect America's treasured places.
Welcome to Cape Chronicle. I'm Audra Kane. If you didn't know, September is the National Preparedness Month, as the Regional Emergency Management Coordinator, Mark Winkler, supports Southeast Missouri local emergency managers in preparing for and responding to natural and other disasters. Thanks so much for coming by, Mark.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we've had a lot of natural disasters in recent weeks with Florida and with Texas and now with Puerto Rico. And we don't have hurricanes affecting us so much in Missouri, but what types of natural disasters do we need to prepare for in our area?
Well, I think for the most part, we're very familiar with the ones that we should be, and those being severe weather, severe thunderstorms, which could spawn tornadoes and which could produce widespread flooding. But of course, in the back of our minds, we also have to have that ever-present reminder that we sit on the New Madrid fault line and we could have a catastrophic earthquake at any point in time.
That's something that we were discussing at home the other day. And so as far as roles for preparation and response, what do you think that the public role is for each of us as far as preparing for natural disasters like that?
Well, the key to any response and recovery from an event is to first make sure that each individual and each individual family is prepared. Rules say, or the experts say, 3 to 5 days worth of food and water supplies. You might want to go a little bit more than that, but everyone should be prepared, because you never know when it's going to happen. And if we could just have that time when the responders can get their jobs orchestrated to be able to go where they need to go for those real emergencies, and then the people that may have flood water around their homes or whatever have the food, the water that they're okay, they can stay at home, and we can eventually get to them because they're not the worst case scenario.
Okay, so when you say 3 to 5 days of food and water supplies, when you look at how much one person needs, what does that measure out to approximately as far as food and water goes?
Well, each person should have at least 8 gallons of water a day. 8
gallons? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so that's a lot of water.
And depends on how much you like to eat.
This is true. The smaller you are, probably the less you eat. But do you have people that stock? Are there people here who do that kind of thing, that stockpile water and food for 3 to 5 days that you know of?
It probably isn't as prevalent as it was in the days of the earthquake scare back in 1990, where I think probably 50% of the homes had an emergency kit and emergency water supplies. That number has dwindled probably another half to, it may be as little as 15%. But I think that every time that something see, emergencies are cyclical, and the human response is likewise. So whenever there's a flurry of activity, you start to see people get prepared. It's during those lax times that's when the trouble starts. Is, you know, the old joke, when the earthquake date came and went, December 3rd, there was a flood because of people were dumping out their water that they had stored up, that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's the best thing is to maintain an even keel, keep a good supply of I mean, most people have a supply of food in their pantries anyway that they could subsist off of for 3 days, and water. You know, you can have your bottled water, but there's also your water heater is a supply of fresh water.
Oh, and most people don't think of that.
No.
You know, you think of, sometimes I've heard of people filling their bathtubs or using the water in the tank for the toilet, because before it goes into the toilet, it's actually pretty clean water comparatively. What are some other supplies that you all recommend that people have besides food and water? Are there other things that you suggest people have on hand?
Well, another major one would be your medications. You have to have a good supply of medications. Flashlight. Most of these things are in a preparedness kit. Usually people can put them in a 5-gallon bucket with a sealable lid. But getting back to the items, first aid supplies. I said flashlight, candles, matches, a portable radio with batteries. Some people put in a small, I forget, I don't know the brand name, but like an aluminum or a tinfoil blanket.
Right, to keep you warm.
Yeah, something that collapses. Just those basic items that could keep you, if you had a cut, or if you had to spend the night somewhere, or of course toiletries too. You know, those are very, very essential. Absolutely,
absolutely. I think a lot of times people forget that those basic things, you know, like having a radio, you know, because that truly, we have an emergency alert system in the United States for a reason, and sometimes at some point, we're probably going to get to the point where the only line of communication might be radio.
Exactly.
And having that radio broadcasting, so if you don't have electricity to turn your television on, you're going to have a radio that you can listen to and get that emergency information from the state of Missouri or from the federal authorities.
And the iPhones won't work either.
No, your phone won't work if the power goes down. And that's something that they're experiencing in Puerto Rico, right?
Right, 100% outage.
Okay. Well, what if you, just real quick, we've got about a minute, what would you suggest that, someone do in case of an emergency, if there is like a natural disaster, and they're separated from the people that they normally are with, and getting in touch with their family? How do you suggest people solve that issue?
Well, one of the first steps they need to take is to develop an emergency plan so that everyone in their family knows what course of action they're going to take. And in that plan, you discuss that separation issue. If it's in town, you know, you pick several locations, like a relative's house or whatever that you can meet at. If there's measurable distance between the parties, the usual prescription is to call someone out of state with your phone and let them know that you're okay, and then the other party would call the same location. Those are the two best tips that I could give.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming by, Mark. With everything that's been going on in the news, it's always good to have a refresher on what we're supposed to be doing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have been chatting with Mark Winkler, the Regional Emergency Management Coordinator. On the way, get to know Lieutenants Virginia and Matthew DeGonia. That's next on Cape Chronicle.
You can sing in the shower and doodle in the margins of a notebook for the rest of your life, or you can push your creativity to center stage and develop the skills to back it up. At Southeast Missouri State University, you can surround yourself with minds that are as creative and weird and beautiful as yours, at a campus dedicated exclusively to the arts, with classmates who share your passion and faculty who know the industry. You've got talent. Let's see what you got.
A decade of war has taken an unprecedented toll on our men and women in uniform.
Hundreds of thousands of our veterans are suffering from the trauma of war.
At Justice for Vets, we believe that every veteran should have the opportunity for treatment and restoration.
Get involved and go to justiceforvets.org.
Help put treatment within reach of veterans in crisis.
Veterans fought for our freedom. Now it's our turn to fight for theirs.
It's going to be hard work, but you've never let that stop you. At Southeast Missouri State, we put that will to do to work for you. You won't just learn in lectures. You'll get your hands dirty, your skills strengthened, and whatever you do, you won't be going it alone. You can do this because you earn everything you get, and what you'll earn here will pay off out there.
Welcome back to Cape Chronicle. I'm Audrey Kane. We want to welcome to the community the new directors of our local Salvation Army. Thank you so much for coming by, Lieutenants Virginia and Matthew DeGonia. So nice to meet you both and have you here. I know this is your first time to do television, but don't be nervous. It's all good. Everyone gets excited when new people come to Cape Girardeau, and I'm sure that you are probably excited to discover a new place. What's your favorite part about living here thus far?
For me, it's actually the community. You know, the people here have been really welcoming, and even though we're new, because we're with the Salvation Army, people right away, they recognize us, they want to welcome us, they want to know how they can help, what can we do to help, is a question we hear a lot. So for me, it's been the people, obviously.
Okay.
I agree. The community has been very welcoming and been very recognized by our pictures in the paper whenever we first got here. And like Matt said, just the willingness to see what people can do.
Absolutely. It is a very welcoming community. I'm going to agree with you on that one. So where were you previously assigned?
So we just got out of the training college for the Salvation Army Training College for officership, and that was in Chicago.
Okay. And so, of course, it's a huge difference for you as far as Chicago, but where were you before Chicago?
In Granite City, Illinois.
Similar, or is Granite City bigger?
And Granite City is a little steel town right outside of St. Louis. It's probably a little bit smaller than Cape, and it's got a little bit different feel than Cape does.
Yes, and so have you experienced some of the culture that the university brings into Cape Girardeau?
Yeah, we're now that the university is kind of in full swing, we're starting to experience that a little bit more. It's an interesting
There's
part.
a few more cars on
yeah,
the
road.
That's right. Summertime is a very slow and lazy period in Cape Girardeau, but you add those students, those 12,000 plus students, and suddenly there's 12,000 plus cars on the road. It's exciting though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And there's a lot more activity. And so with that activity, what does that bring to you at the Salvation Army? What have you all seen with that influx of students?
Yeah, we see an influx of people coming to us to say, hey, I need to do some hours of community service, or I want to volunteer. I know you guys do kids programs and that kind of stuff. So we see that kind of stuff. We have actually the SEMA girls basketball team will be coming in to help us really soon to serve some meals and that kind of stuff and work with the kids. So that really is a big influx of volunteers for us, having the college here.
That's great. That's one of the fantastic things. I know Coach Rika Patterson really highly values her students coming in and doing volunteer work. Have you experienced that in other places that you have been? I know you said you just went through the officer school, but when you've been in other locations?
Yeah, so before we went into training, we were in Granite City, Illinois, and like Matt said, it's a much smaller area. It's not a college town, and they didn't have as many things program-wise. So they didn't have the like we have a feeding program. Granite City didn't have a feeding program or a thrift store, any of that stuff. So I don't think that we've experienced the need for volunteers necessarily, or them coming in, seeking for something to do and a way to help.
And it's probably quite a relief
It
to
is.
you once you got here, because there is a great deal of activity. What would you say is the activity through our Salvation Army that has been the most impressive to you?
Here in Cape, I would definitely say it's our after-school program. I mean, we provide a safe place for the kids, school-age kids, after school every single day of the week, Monday through Friday. And we have kids that come in. Sometimes they just want to shoot basketball, but we have a great youth director who makes them sit down and do their homework. And they get to learn a little bit about themselves. They get to learn about God. They get to learn about school, and then they get to have fun. And it's safe, and I think that's probably the most impressive thing that we've experienced.
Speaking of kids, you two have one child, right? And it's a boy?
Yep, a 6-year-old boy, Gabriel.
Is he excited about the new city?
Yeah, he really enjoys it here. He goes to Alma Schroeder, so he likes school, which is a little change of pace from last year. And yeah, he loves coming down to the Corps and hanging out with the kids at the Corps and playing in the gym with them.
Alma Schroeder is a great campus that the Cape Girardeau School District has. It's one of the gems in this city. And what type of changes have you noticed as far as in your family and what you all are experiencing here in Cape Girardeau?
Yeah, the busyness of being a Corps officer or being a director of the Salvation Army it's different for us. So we've had to kind of learn to do that work-life balance a little bit more. But besides that, I mean, our family life is thriving. Gabriel's happy. We're happy with each other, and so we're just happy to be here.
Well, okay, so that's great. I think that's exciting to hear. As far as the Salvation Army goes, I know there are sometimes people don't know exactly what you do. What would you say if you could give a quick synopsis of what the Salvation Army's mission is?
Sure. Yeah, the Salvation Army's mission really is to try to be the hands and feet of Jesus in the community. We want to be very practical in our ministry, so we provide food, shelters, or try to help with people with shelters. Like I said, safe place for people to come, and if they need to get cool for the day, they can sit in our offices, or kids to come after school. But really, it's just to go out into the world, give a little bit of light, and meet people's human needs without discrimination in the name of Jesus. That's the Salvation Army's mission.
How has serving with the Salvation Army impacted your own personal lives?
I think personally it's fulfilling. I've been a part of the Salvation Army. I started going to the Salvation Army in January of 2008 just as a church, and started volunteering with the programs in Granite City, and just slowly God worked in my life and called me to full-time ministry. And I think it's evident whenever I look at my family to see how we all have grown in our ministry, and that He uses all of us. It's just, like I said, it's fulfilling in every aspect of my life.
If you were to invite someone to come down, what would you, when they walk in the door, what's the first thing that you say when you greet them?
Welcome.
Well, that's helpful, sure. But I'm curious to know, how do you connect them?
The question we probably would ask is, how can we help you? And then if it's somebody like, well, I'm just here to volunteer, we want to connect people in the best way possible. So if you want to volunteer and help kids, we're gonna figure out how that works best for you. If you want to volunteer and help our feeding program, we let our volunteers kind of tell us what they want to do. We find that works best. So if you want to volunteer, you come down and you let us know what you want to do, and we'll find a spot for you.
Well, it's so nice to meet both of you, and so great to see a couple of smiling faces that'll certainly greet people at the Salvation Army here in Cape Girardeau. Virginia and
Matthew.
I was going to say Matthew. Virginia and Matthew DeGonia.
That's right.
Very nice to have you in Cape.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for coming by. Again, thanks to Lieutenants Matthew and Virginia DeGonia. After the break, we'll hear from Corporal Ryan Droege. That's next on Cape Chronicle.
Founded in 1877, the American Humane Association has been dedicated to the idea that all animals, including those raised on our farms and ranches, are entitled to humane treatment. Today, animals on nearly 8,000 farms enjoy a better quality of life because of the ethical, science-based standards established by the American Humane Association. Live better, be humane. Choose American Humane Certified products.
This is Cape Chronicle, and I'm Audra Kane. We are joined now by Corporal Ryan Droege, a crime analyst for the City of Cape Girardeau's police department. And since this job is a very recent addition to the police force, Corporal Droege can provide some fresh insight on this position. So glad to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm fascinated by this because, okay, I'm all about the crime TV, and I'm sure that a lot of people watching probably have watched Law and Order. It's been on forever, and you see these crime analysts come into television shows. How is it similar or how is it different from what you do for the City of Cape?
Well, I don't watch quite as much as you probably, so I don't think I have the same reference. But I'm going to guess in the few I have seen, it's very similar. We give the same output. We perform the same duties. We have the same end results. They do it in 12 minutes with commercials. It takes me a tad longer than that in real life.
What would you say? All right, so have you had your first case that you've had to, I don't, explain exactly what it is you're going to be doing. How about that?
In terms of a case like that, like you would see on TV, those come along for a city like ours, you know, not as often as you would think. It's got to be a very specific set of circumstances that lend themselves to an analysis like that, to be really boiled down and try and predict what's going to happen or try to catch the bad guy in the act. That's very few and far between. More, it's trying to find a pattern or, you know, just a pattern in that set of data that's going to help you either in a short term catch the bad guy faster, or for a long-term problem, identify that problem and try and find a solution for it.
So let me ask you this: having worked in the news department with the local radio station group, knowing what streets are prevalent as far as shootings go, and is that something that you look at say what that street is and how you all can best respond to repeated incidents in that area?
It could be shooting or any a number of other crimes. It would be a lot of, like you said, if you identify an issue you're having, but then looking at the data to try and see what else is going on. If you're finding these long-term patterns, if we are having a lot of shootings in one spot or a lot of burglaries in one spot or car break-ins in one spot, if you can identify that pattern, you can try and see when, where, and then look into why. What else is going on that makes this area like that such a target? So when you're looking at long-term patterns like that, it's more about reducing opportunities than it is apprehending a specific suspect.
Okay, so prevention,
yes,
more so than stopping someone from committing a crime.
Two different jobs. In the short term, you can do some analysis to try and stop a bad guy and find him quickly, get him off the streets. And a more long-term portion of it is to, like you said, identify a pattern and then reduce opportunity. So
how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing it since April of this year.
Okay, and so was it something that was the department interested in having you do this, or?
I don't know about me specifically. Sometime around the beginning of the year, some of our commanders decided this is a position they wanted for the department, and so they posted the job opening, and I just applied and tested and got selected.
So you were in-house and just happened
Yes.
to have a particular set of skills?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, and so what type of, did you go through some specific training?
I have, and I still am. The department's been great with providing me, books to learn from, sending me to multiple training classes with some real top-notch training to really, it's so new to both the department and myself. It's good to get a lot of hands-on first-person training like that. A lot of surrounding agencies in St. Louis have been very kind to me. They've welcomed me up and shown me the ropes and given me some tips. So,
is there something in particular that you've learned that has really stirred your interest a lot more than other particular? Is there something that you're like, oh, this is really fascinating, I want to follow this?
I think just the subject as a whole, the idea of as a department, like one of the byproducts of a good department like ours is we just have a collection of so much data on a daily basis, and the idea of me coming in, or someone like me coming in to try and harness the power of that data to make our department and the city better, just the whole overall concept I find very, very captivating, and it's very exciting, I feel.
What do your fellow officers think about what you're getting to do, and are they interested in hearing from you as far as analysis of data, or do you have some time to sit down with them and chat about the things that you're studying?
Absolutely. It depends on which level. Higher level commanders, I give them a weekly statistics brochure that they can look at and see how the department and the city's doing in terms of crime. Lower level guys, they might come to me and ask me, hey, I feel like there's been an uptick in this, can you look into it? And I can, go through the last couple of weeks of information and say, hey, you're right or you're wrong, or here's what I'm seeing and here's what I think we can do about it to stop it from moving forward.
What do you have as far as goals for, are there any markers or goals that you have a year from now, 2 years from now, anything that you need to look into, or things that you are watching really closely?
In terms of specific crime, I would say no. It's mainly for me, it's just improving myself and what I'm doing within the job so that I'm providing the best service to the department and the city. And then once I get all that, I feel like I'm squared away in that regard, I can start looking at more incident-specific goals like that.
Are there any new developments in crime analysis?
Like in any field, it's just technology. Technology gets better and better. You get better software to process information. You get better AI. Some of the leading companies are getting into AI and the predictive analysis. But like I said, that's a specific set, and that comes into play.
And so, do people ask you a lot of questions about your job?
They tend to, until I start droning on about statistics and numbers and spreadsheets, and then their eyes kind of glaze over and they...
Yeah, I think that statistics is everyone's least favorite class at Southeast. So.
I think it's a misunderstood subject. even when I took it, I was kind of the same way. I would just start staring off, and I wish I hadn't now, but when you get into it and you start understanding it and you get comfortable with it, it's pretty fascinating.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming by. We have been talking with Corporal Ryan Droege. Thanks for your time, and thank you for joining us for Cape Chronicle. The program is a collaboration between the Department of Mass Media at Southeast Missouri State University and the City of Cape Girardeau. Our executive producer is Dr. Jim Dufek. I'm Audra Kane. Thanks for watching. Now we'll just do a little bit of happy talk. So.